He literally said that to her. My jaw dropped. I blurted out to her, was he wearing a cup when you kicked him? What an outrageous thing to say. But as I went through the funeral, Heather's funeral, and all the other grieving, I found myself obsessively thinking about this guy, this boorish young man I'd never met. Why was I obsessed with this guy? Well, eventually I figured out, because I was trying to figure out, how did he get there? How did he get from being this little boy, this isn't him, but a little boy, to being that guy? An ordinary American boy, to a man who believes he needs a Playboy bunny on his arm. He's entirely missing the point of being a human being, which is making true connection with others. That's really scary. He's walking around with a gigantic void in the middle of his soul, in the middle of his person. But the scariest part of all, he doesn't even know the void is there. He doesn't even know he's got a problem. This is serious price to be paying. In our pseudo-sexualized culture, it's no surprise that boys like him, grow up believing that the size of a woman's cleavage is more important than the size of her heart or her brain or her soul or her talent. So our fraternity of men has got to do much more than condemning guys like the reporter's boyfriend. We have to also hold up and make visible and make sexy, if you will, for ourselves and for our sons, the huge number of men who live their lives as real human beings. And it may be hard to believe after what you've been hearing the last couple of days, and especially in the last hour. There are men out here who are living their lives as like real human beings. It's in our own selfish best interest to do this. The widespread emotional and spiritual illiteracy among males is encouraged by pseudo-sexualization, and it forces us to try to ignore or deny our humanity. And so we mask our existential pain with alcohol and drugs, and we drive drunk into bridge abutments, and the end result is that we die. Men in this country die 9 years younger than women do. I would argue it's because of male emotional death. Losing 10% or more of our sons' lives is a pretty hefty price to pay for pseudo-sexualization. So what can we do besides rage and grieve? Well, I think for starters we have to upend pseudo-sexuality's definition of masculinity. As we talk to each other and young people, let's insist on being trustworthy and real. Let's model, encourage, and expect healthy affection and real human connection. That means unlearning some of the lessons we absorbed as boys and stop engaging the continuum of destructive pseudo-sexual behaviors that contribute to and create permission for sexual abuse and emotional death. And that means giving up pornography and the terrible impact it has on our children. And I had a story I was going to tell you about that, but I don't have time, unfortunately. I'm going to skip ahead. We're telling our daughters and sons that it's okay to see females as sex objects. And that really reinforces, I think, a deadly stereotype that men and boys care only about titillation. I think men and boys are conditioned to only care about titillation, but that men and boys as human beings don't have to care only about titillation, and their natural instinct is to care about more than titillation. But we are doing virtually nothing to nurture that part of them. Okay? And we've got to start doing it. So what exactly does it mean? Well, I think like porn, marketing pseudo-sexual titillation offers men momentary arousal and gratification. But it also minimizes men and boys' risk of identifying with females, with other males, and with our own humanity. What can we do about that as men? Especially when it's so hard for us to even speak about the problem about being branded as perverts or accused of minimizing victims' hurt. Clearly, retreating into silence or saying it's not my fault doesn't solve the problem. I think men and women both have got to inoculate our sons by providing and promoting emotional literacy and good touch and advocacy among fathers and other caring men. We need to teach young people, girls and boys, how to be both male and fully human in a culture rife with pseudo-sexualization, homophobia, sexism, racism, distorted notions of masculinity. We need to mentor, and not just role model, but do real, genuine relationships with individual young people inside and outside of our home. We need to volunteer for sexual assault centers and Girl Scout councils and early childhood programs and groups like CCFC and dads, putting more men into the line of children's advocates. We have to teach boys how to babysit as eagerly as we teach them how to fish, okay? We have to talk back to marketers of pseudo-sexualization, man to man, and demand change. For a couple of years, dads and daughters got men to write letters to the men who run big companies that market pseudo-sexuality to girls. Man to man, we challenged them to put their children's face in the picture. Some of those corporate leaders responded by pulling the ads that we protested. There's an ad for Sun-In, 4 out of the 5 girls you hate. Ask for it by name. Stop hating them, start being them. Buy this product. We went to the head of the corporation, a man, made our case, put your daughter's face in the picture. He pulled the ad. I'm going to skip ahead here. I think, and I'm going to skip ahead in my script here, I'm sorry. I had this timed out. We have to talk to each other about being real. We have to stop seeing vulnerability and other emotional intelligences as weakness and start seeing them as the keys to unlock the gates to joy and spirituality and creativity and love. We need to openly cultivate those among us who feel alone, men who feel alone as they struggle to be good men and fathers. And when we do that, more good men and fathers will spring up behind them. We must, all of us, men and women, girls and boys, start seeing beyond the stereotypes of men as dolts and perps. We've got to militantly hold up an alternative ideology and an alternative vision of masculinity for men and boys and for women and girls. We need to see men as being capable of being good men and actually demonstrate the loyalty and courage to live as good men no matter what the price, just like the guy in the Sprite commercial does. I know many a man who is like that. He will do anything for his child, even wear a tiara and beads. He will swim miles through the roughest sea to save her from drowning. Even though it may feel like it takes greater courage than that, he will get down on the floor and play Barbies or dress up with her, even if other men come to the door to mock him. Why? Because he loves her so deeply. It is a raspberry on the belly. In his smile, pride wins out. He knows that his real connection with his daughter is worth any momentary, ultimately pseudo-embarrassment. It's worth any price. There's a great irony, especially at this conference, to admit the great hope I feel from that commercial. But when even some 30-second TV ads acknowledge that men truly care and that they can and do strive to live out their filled humanity, that gives me hope. A man obeys his thirst to be a good father and fully human. He is responsive, supportive, effective, and loving, even if it means dropping his pornified tough guys, G-U-I-S-E, of masculinity. We can challenge pseudo-sexualization and the end of the porn industry. And when we do it, we'll create a world where men and boys are able and do and want to give our full affection and loyalty and love to our families and to each other, confident that all of us, men, women, and children, are safe. So let's get started. We have some questions. We are really short on time, but we'll take some questions. Sorry.